Good evening, everyone. Today, I want to speak about something profoundly human, yet often painful to discuss: the experience of being a woman with no friends. This topic is not just about loneliness, but about the deeper truths of connection, growth, and self-discovery. Human beings are inherently social creatures designed to live in connection with one another. Relationships are not just an added bonus to a fulfilling life, they are essential to our very survival and emotional well-being. From the moment we are born, we rely on others for our survival, our education, and our emotional development. As we grow, the web of relationships we create becomes the foundation upon which we build our lives. Without these connections, we risk losing not only the support and care of others, but also a deeper understanding of ourselves. When we talk about relationships, we often think of family, romantic partners, or acquaintances, but friendships hold a special place in this spectrum. Friendships are unique because they are chosen rather than inherited. They are based on shared experiences, mutual respect, and a deep understanding of one another. They are the relationships we lean on when life becomes overwhelming, the people we share our joys and fears with, and the individuals who help us see the world through different perspectives. Friendships give us the freedom to express ourselves fully without the expectations or obligations that often come with other types of relationships. But what happens when someone finds themselves without friends? For a woman with no friends, the absence of these bonds can create a sense of isolation that is difficult to articulate. This isolation doesn't only mean a lack of companionship, it signifies the loss of a critical component of her identity. Friendships serve as a mirror, reflecting back aspects of who we are, our strengths, weaknesses, values, and quirks. Without this mirror, it's easy to lose a sense of self, to feel adrift in a world that often moves too quickly to pause and reflect. The absence of friendships can also lead to a lack of external feedback. Friends challenge us, not always directly, but through the natural dynamics of the relationship. They push us to question our assumptions, to see our blind spots, and to grow in ways we might not have imagined. Without this feedback, personal development can stagnate. A woman with no friends may struggle to see herself clearly, which can perpetuate a cycle of isolation. The less feedback she receives, the harder it becomes to identify and address the very behaviors or circumstances that might be keeping her from forming meaningful connections. Moreover, friendships provide an essential sense of belonging. They remind us that we are not alone in our struggles and that our experiences, while unique, are also shared by others. This shared understanding fosters a sense of community, a feeling of being part of something larger than oneself. When a woman is disconnected from this community, she may begin to feel invisible, as though her existence doesn't matter to anyone else. This can lead to feelings of despair, resentment, a deepening sense of loneliness. It's important to recognize, however, that the absence of friendships doesn't mean the absence of worth. A woman with no friends is not inherently flawed or unlovable. Often there are external factors at play, circumstances that limit her opportunities to connect, such as work demands, family responsibilities, or even geographical isolation. Internal challenges, such as low self-esteem, anxiety, or past traumas, can also play a significant role. These barriers can make the process of building friendships feel daunting, even impossible at times. Yet the potential for change is always present. Relationships, like any skill, can be cultivated. Building meaningful connections requires effort, patience, and vulnerability. It begins with self-awareness, taking the time to understand one's own strengths and weaknesses, identifying patterns of behavior that might hinder connections, and making a conscious effort to grow. It requires stepping outside of one's comfort zone, seeking out opportunities to meet new people, and being willing to face the discomfort of rejection. But with persistence, the rewards can be profound. Friendships thrive on reciprocity. They are built on the principle of give and take, where both parties contribute to the relationship and benefit from it. For a woman who has no friends, the process of forming these bonds may start with small gestures, offering a kind word, showing interest in someone's life, or simply being present in shared moments. Over time, these small acts can lay the foundation for deeper connections built on trust, empathy, and mutual respect. The beauty of relationships lies in their ability to transform us. Through friendships, we learn to see the world through others' eyes, to appreciate differences, and to celebrate commonalities. They remind us of our shared humanity and our capacity for compassion. For a woman with no friends, the journey toward building these connections may feel long and challenging, but it is a journey worth taking. It is an opportunity to not only enrich her own life, but also to bring value to the lives of others. Ultimately, the importance of relationships cannot be overstated. They are the threads that weave the fabric of our lives, giving it strength, color, and meaning. For anyone who finds themselves disconnected, the path back to connection begins with a single step, a willingness to try, to grow, and to open their heart to the possibility of friendship. No matter how isolated one may feel, the potential for connection is always within reach, waiting to transform loneliness into belonging and isolation into community. Social isolation is a deeply challenging and often misunderstood condition that goes beyond the simple experience of being alone. While solitude can be restorative and even necessary at times, social isolation represents a prolonged lack of meaningful interaction with others. It is not merely about the physical absence of people, but the emotional and psychological separation from the world around us. For those who find themselves isolated, the experience can be profoundly damaging, influencing nearly every aspect of their lives: mental health, physical well-being, and even their sense of purpose and identity. At its core, social isolation is often marked by a disconnection from the relationships and communities that give life its richness. Humans are wired for connection, and this need for interaction is more than a cultural expectation. It is a fundamental part of what it means to be human. From an evolutionary perspective, our survival depended on forming strong social bonds. Tribes offered protection, shared resources, and emotional support. And this need for community has been passed down through generations. When someone becomes isolated, they are, in many ways, cut off from the very structure that sustains our well-being. The effects of social isolation can manifest in various ways, both physically and emotionally. Studies have consistently shown that individuals who experience prolonged isolation are at a greater risk of developing chronic health conditions such as heart disease, high blood pressure, and weakened immune systems. The absence of regular social interaction can lead to increased levels of stress and a rise in cortisol, the body's stress hormone. Over time, these physiological effects can take a toll, leading to a higher likelihood of illness and even premature death. On an emotional level, the consequences can be equally severe. Isolation often breeds feelings of loneliness, which, while related, is not the same as simply being alone. Loneliness is the perception of being cut off, of feeling that no one truly understands or values you. It can create a cycle of self-doubt where an individual begins to question their worth and ability to connect with others. This emotional pain can escalate into more serious mental health issues, including depression, anxiety, and a pervasive sense of hopelessness. One of the most insidious aspects of social isolation is how it can reinforce itself. When someone feels disconnected, they may withdraw further, either out of fear of rejection or because they no longer know how to reach out. The longer this isolation persists, the harder it becomes to break free from it. Social skills may erode, confidence may diminish, and the energy required to rebuild connections can feel overwhelming. For some, this can lead to a sense of resignation, a belief that isolation is their inevitable reality. For women, social isolation can be particularly complex due to societal expectations and pressures. Women are often seen as the caretakers and nurturers, roles that emphasize the importance of relationships and community. When a woman finds herself isolated, it can carry an additional layer of stigma, as if her lack of connections reflects a personal failing. This perception can compound the pain of isolation, making it even harder to seek help or to openly acknowledge the struggle. The causes of social isolation are varied and multifaceted. Sometimes external circumstances play a significant role. Life transitions such as moving to a new city, losing a loved one, or experiencing a major life change like divorce or retirement can disrupt social networks. Other times, internal factors come into play, such as low self-esteem, social anxiety, or past trauma. Whatever the cause, the experience of isolation often leaves individuals feeling trapped, as though they are caught in an invisible cage with no clear way out. However, it's important to remember that social isolation, while deeply challenging, is not an unchangeable state. There is hope even for those who feel most disconnected. The first step in addressing isolation is recognizing it for what it is, not a reflection of personal failure, but a condition that can be addressed and improved with effort and support. Rebuilding connections takes time, patience, and often a willingness to confront fears and vulnerabilities. Breaking free from isolation often begins with small, intentional steps. This might mean reaching out to a family member or old friend, joining a local club or group, or even participating in online communities. The key is to create opportunities for interaction, even if they feel uncomfortable at first. It's important to remember that rebuilding relationships is a process, one that requires persistence and an open heart. Additionally, seeking professional support can be an invaluable resource for those struggling with isolation. Therapists, counselors, and support groups can provide guidance, tools, and encouragement to help individuals navigate the challenges of reconnecting with others. For some, this may also involve addressing underlying issues such as depression or social anxiety, which can make forming relationships more difficult. Ultimately, the antidote to social isolation lies in the very connections it disrupts. Human beings are remarkably resilient, and our capacity to form meaningful relationships is never truly lost. Even after prolonged periods of isolation, it is possible to rebuild, to find community, and to rediscover the joy that comes from being seen, heard, and valued by others. While the journey may be difficult, the rewards, connection, belonging, and a renewed sense of purpose are well worth the effort. Social isolation may feel like a closed door, but with courage and persistence, that door can always be opened. Friendship is one of the most profound and transformative aspects of human life. It is through our friendships that we experience some of the deepest forms of connection, trust, and understanding. But friendship is more than just companionship or a source of comfort during difficult times. It serves as a mirror reflecting back to us the person we are, the person we aspire to be, and sometimes the person we might not want to admit we've become. This reflective quality of friendship is a powerful force for growth, self-awareness, and transformation. When we interact with close friends, we are engaging with individuals who often see us more clearly than we see ourselves. In the presence of someone who knows us well, we are vulnerable in a way that we might not be with acquaintances or colleagues. A true friend doesn't just see the polished version of us that we present to the outside world. They see the struggles, the contradictions, and the moments of insecurity. This depth of understanding is what makes friendship so unique. In this context, a friend becomes a mirror, not just showing us our strengths, but also helping us recognize our blind spots. The reflective nature of friendship is particularly valuable because it is rooted in trust and mutual respect. Unlike criticism from a stranger or feedback from a professional setting, the observations of a close friend are often received with greater openness. A friend's honesty, when delivered with care, can be a wake-up call that inspires us to examine our behavior, our decisions, or even the direction of our lives. For example, a friend might gently point out when we've been too hard on ourselves or when we're avoiding a difficult truth. Their perspective, born out of genuine concern, can provide clarity in moments of confusion or doubt. At the same time, friendships also reflect our values and priorities. The people we choose to surround ourselves with often say a great deal about what we value most. If we gravitate toward friends who are ambitious, creative, or compassionate, it may be because we admire and aspire to embody these qualities ourselves. Conversely, if we find ourselves drawn to relationships that are negative or draining, it can be a signal that we need to examine our own mindset or emotional state. The old adage, "you are the company you keep," holds a profound truth. Our friendships are not just a reflection of who we are, but also a force that shapes who we become. This mirroring effect of friendship is not always comfortable. There are times when our friends might hold up a mirror that reveals things we'd rather not see, flaws, insecurities, or patterns of behavior that we need to address. Perhaps they point out that we've been avoiding responsibility, or that we've let fear hold us back from pursuing something meaningful. These moments can be difficult to accept, but they are often where the greatest growth occurs. A friend who challenges us in this way is offering a gift, even if it doesn't feel that way at the time. They are inviting us to step into a fuller, more authentic version of ourselves. However, it's important to recognize that this reflective quality of friendship goes both ways. Just as our friends mirror us, we also serve as mirrors for them. This mutual reflection creates a dynamic where both individuals have the opportunity to grow and evolve. By being present, honest, and supportive, we can help our friends see themselves more clearly, just as they do for us. This mutuality is what makes friendship such a rich and rewarding relationship. It is not one-sided, it is an ongoing exchange of insight, understanding, and encouragement. The absence of friendships, on the other hand, can lead to a lack of this vital reflection. Without friends to offer their perspectives, it can become easy to lose touch with oneself. Our perception of who we are might become skewed, either overly critical or unrealistically positive, without the grounding influence of those who know us well. This is one reason why loneliness can feel so destabilizing. It leaves us without the mirrors that help us make sense of ourselves and our place in the world. For those who struggle to form or maintain friendships, it's important to remember that this reflective quality of friendship is something that can be cultivated over time. Building meaningful relationships requires effort, vulnerability, and a willingness to both give and receive. It requires us to show up as we are with all our imperfections and to accept others in the same way. The process may be challenging, especially for those who have been hurt or who struggle with trust, but the rewards are immeasurable. In the end, friendship as a mirror is one of the most powerful tools for self-discovery and growth. It allows us to see ourselves through the eyes of someone who cares deeply for us, offering both encouragement and accountability. It challenges us to be better while reminding us that we are already enough. And perhaps most importantly, it teaches us that we are not alone in our journey. Through the reflective lens of friendship, we come to understand not only who we are, but who we have the potential to become. It is in this understanding that we find the true beauty and purpose of connection. Reciprocity lies at the heart of all meaningful relationships, particularly friendships. It is the invisible thread that binds individuals together, weaving mutual understanding, care, and effort into something more substantial than mere acquaintance. True reciprocity is not about keeping score or creating an exact balance of give and take. Rather, it is about the willingness to engage in a relationship where both parties contribute and benefit in meaningful ways. Without reciprocity, a friendship risks becoming one-sided, stagnant, or transactional, lacking the depth and vitality that makes such bonds truly fulfilling. The value in reciprocity stems from its ability to create trust and reinforce connection. When we give to a friend, whether it's our time, emotional support, or simply the act of listening, we communicate that they matter to us. This act of giving encourages the other person to respond in kind, creating a natural flow of care and commitment that strengthens the bond over time. Reciprocity ensures that both individuals feel valued and understood, fostering a sense of equality and mutual respect that is foundational to healthy relationships. One of the most beautiful aspects of reciprocity is that it often arises organically in genuine friendships. When we deeply care for someone, we want to see them happy, to support them in their struggles, and to celebrate their successes. In turn, when someone consistently shows up for us, it inspires a sense of gratitude and the desire to reciprocate. This natural exchange becomes the foundation upon which trust is built. Over time, it creates a cycle of positive reinforcement, where acts of kindness and support deepen the connection and encourage further reciprocity. However, it's important to note that reciprocity in friendship is not about perfection or equivalence. It does not mean that every action must be met with an equal or identical response. Life's demands often mean that friendships will ebb and flow, with one person giving more during certain seasons and the other stepping up when roles are reversed. A friend who is going through a difficult time, whether due to illness, loss, or personal struggles, may need more support than they can give in return. Reciprocity doesn't require balance in every moment, but rather a sense of mutual investment over time. It's the knowledge that when the roles are reversed, the other person will be there, ready to give as they have received. When reciprocity is absent, however, the imbalance can strain even the closest friendships. A one-sided friendship, where one person consistently gives while the other only takes, can lead to feelings of resentment and depletion. The giver may start to feel unappreciated or taken for granted, while the taker may not even realize the impact of their actions or inactions. This imbalance often arises not from malice, but from a lack of awareness or a failure to communicate needs and boundaries. Addressing such imbalances requires honest dialogue and a willingness from both parties to reflect on their contributions to the relationship. Reciprocity also teaches us invaluable lessons about humility and gratitude. Accepting help or support from a friend can sometimes feel uncomfortable, particularly for those who are used to being self-reliant. But friendships thrive when both people are willing to give and receive. Allowing a friend to help us when we're in need is not a sign of weakness. It is an act of trust and vulnerability that strengthens the relationship. Similarly, expressing gratitude for the ways a friend has supported us reinforces the value of their efforts, encouraging the cycle of reciprocity to continue. Beyond the personal benefits, reciprocity in friendship also has a ripple effect, extending its influence beyond the individuals involved. When we experience the positive impact of mutual support, we are often inspired to extend that kindness to others. This creates a broader culture of reciprocity where generosity and care become the norm rather than the exception. In this way, the value of reciprocity transcends individual relationships, contributing to stronger communities and a greater sense of collective well-being. It's worth considering how reciprocity challenges the modern notion of transactional relationships, which often reduce interactions to a simple exchange of goods or services. Friendships rooted in reciprocity, by contrast, are about more than what can be gained. They are about shared experiences, growth, and connection. They remind us that the most meaningful relationships are not measured by material benefits, but by the intangible qualities of trust, empathy, and mutual respect. Reciprocity invites us to move beyond self-interest, encouraging us to invest in others not out of obligation, but out of genuine care. The act of giving and receiving in friendship also fosters a sense of balance within ourselves. By contributing to a friendship, we affirm our own ability to make a positive impact on someone else's life. By receiving, we remind ourselves that we are deserving of care and support. This dynamic reinforces self-worth and reminds us that we are interconnected beings, relying on one another not out of weakness, but out of the shared need for connection and belonging. Ultimately, reciprocity is what transforms a casual acquaintance into a deep and lasting friendship. It is what gives relationships their vitality and depth, ensuring that both individuals feel seen, valued, and supported. It reminds us that friendships are not static. They are living, evolving connections that require effort, intention, and care. The value in reciprocity lies not just in what we give or receive, but in the understanding that we are part of something larger, a bond built on mutual trust, shared experiences, and the simple but profound act of being there for one another. It is in this balance of giving and receiving that the true beauty and strength of friendship are revealed. Personal responsibility is one of the most crucial elements of living a meaningful and fulfilling life. It is the understanding that our actions, choices, and attitudes significantly shape our reality. At its core, personal responsibility is about owning our role in the outcomes we experience, whether they are successes or failures, joys or challenges. It is not about blaming ourselves for every difficulty, but rather about recognizing the agency we have to influence our circumstances and the accountability we owe ourselves and others to live with integrity, effort, and intention. Taking personal responsibility begins with the acknowledgement that while we cannot control everything that happens to us, we can control how we respond. Life is inherently unpredictable, filled with moments of adversity and uncertainty. External factors such as economic downturns, health crises, or social pressures can impose limits and obstacles that are beyond our control. However, within these circumstances, we retain the ability to make choices about how we think, act, and adapt. It is in this space between external events and our responses that personal responsibility emerges as a defining force. Owning our decisions requires self-awareness and honesty. It is easy to attribute setbacks to external circumstances or other people, and while this may sometimes be true, it can also become a way to avoid facing our own shortcomings. Personal responsibility demands that we look inward asking hard questions about our role in the situations we encounter. Did we procrastinate on a goal and miss an opportunity? Were we too focused on comfort to take a necessary risk? Did we allow fear or pride to prevent us from asking for help? These reflections are not about self-criticism for its own sake, but about learning and growing from our experiences. One of the most empowering aspects of personal responsibility is that it places the power to create change back in our hands. When we accept responsibility for our lives, we no longer view ourselves as victims of circumstance. Instead, we become active participants in shaping our futures. This shift in perspective is transformative. It reminds us that while we may not have control over the cards we are dealt, we have the agency to play them wisely. This sense of ownership can be deeply motivating, inspiring us to take actions that align with our values and aspirations. In relationships, personal responsibility plays an equally critical role. Healthy connections with others are built on trust, accountability, and the willingness to acknowledge our part in both harmony and conflict. When misunderstandings arise, it can be tempting to blame the other person entirely. Yet taking responsibility for our actions, whether it's an unkind word, a lack of communication, or a moment of insensitivity, demonstrates maturity and respect for the relationship. It also opens the door for resolution, as it shows a commitment to growth and mutual understanding. At the same time, personal responsibility in relationships includes setting boundaries and taking care of one's own needs. It is not about taking on the weight of every problem or sacrificing oneself to maintain peace. Instead, it is about being clear about what we can give, communicating honestly, and taking ownership of our emotional well-being. For example, if a friendship or partnership feels one-sided or unhealthy, it is our responsibility to address the issue rather than silently enduring or placing blame. This balance between accountability to ourselves and others is key to sustaining meaningful connections. Another significant dimension of personal responsibility is the willingness to learn from failure. Failure is an inevitable part of life, but how we respond to it determines its impact on our future. Accepting responsibility for our mistakes allows us to extract valuable lessons and avoid repeating the same errors. It fosters resilience and a growth mindset, enabling us to view setbacks not as permanent defeats, but as stepping stones toward improvement. In contrast, avoiding responsibility often leads to stagnation, as it prevents us from confronting the changes we need to make to achieve our goals. Personal responsibility also intersects with the pursuit of purpose and meaning. Living a meaningful life requires intentionality, which can only be achieved when we take responsibility for how we spend our time, energy, and resources. It involves setting goals that align with our values and taking consistent steps toward them, even when the path is uncertain or difficult. This responsibility extends beyond ourselves to the broader world, as our actions inevitably affect others. Whether it's contributing to our communities, treating others with kindness, or striving to leave a positive impact, personal responsibility reminds us of the interconnected nature of our existence. Importantly, embracing personal responsibility does not mean denying the role of external factors or dismissing the reality of systemic challenges. It is not about minimizing the hardships faced by individuals due to circumstances beyond their control, such as economic inequality, discrimination, or unforeseen crises. Rather, it is about focusing on what can be done within those constraints. It is about taking ownership of our responses, our mindset, and our efforts, even when the odds are stacked against us. Ultimately, the role of personal responsibility is to empower us to live authentically and purposefully. It challenges us to confront our fears, embrace our potential, and take ownership of our journey. It encourages us to act with integrity, to learn from our experiences, and to approach life with a sense of agency and accountability. While the path of personal responsibility is not always easy, it is one of the most rewarding ways to build a life of meaning, resilience, and fulfillment. By embracing this responsibility, we not only grow as individuals, but also contribute to the well-being of those around us and the world as a whole. Bitterness is a corrosive emotion, one that quietly seeps into the fabric of our thoughts, actions, and relationships if left unchecked. While everyone encounters disappointment, hurt, or betrayal at some point in life, the risk of bitterness arises when these experiences are not processed acknowledged, and released. It is an emotional state rooted in unresolved pain, often fueled by a sense of injustice, and its presence can gradually erode our mental and emotional well-being. Bitterness is more than a fleeting feeling. It is a mindset, one that can cloud our perspective, damage our relationships, and prevent us from moving forward. The roots of bitterness often lie in unmet expectations or unhealed wounds. It might arise from a broken relationship, a perceived betrayal, or a series of setbacks that feel undeserved. These experiences can foster resentment, particularly when the pain goes unspoken or unresolved. At its core, bitterness is a reaction to a sense of unfairness, a belief that we have been wronged or treated unjustly, coupled with the inability to let go of that grievance. While it may initially feel like a justified response, bitterness rarely serves us in the long run. Instead of resolving the hurt, it deepens it, turning the pain inward and feeding a cycle of negativity. One of the greatest risks of bitterness is how it can distort our perspective over time. When bitterness takes hold, it narrows our focus, making it difficult to see the positive aspects of our lives. We may begin to dwell on past grievances, replaying the same scenarios in our minds and reinforcing feelings of anger or resentment. This repetitive cycle can create a kind of tunnel vision, where the world is viewed through a lens of cynicism and mistrust. In this state, even neutral or positive experiences can be overshadowed by the weight of unresolved pain, leading to a sense of hopelessness or disconnection. Bitterness also has a profound impact on our relationships. When we carry unresolved resentment, it often spills over into our interactions with others, even those who are not involved in the original hurt. Friends, family members, and partners may find themselves on the receiving end of irritability, mistrust, or emotional distance, as bitterness creates walls where openness and connection should be. Over time, this can strain even the closest relationships, as the bitterness we harbor makes it difficult to fully engage with or trust the people who care about us. Another danger of bitterness is its self-reinforcing nature. The longer we hold on to bitterness, the more it solidifies into a pattern of thinking. It can lead to a victim mentality, where we view ourselves as powerless in the face of life's challenges and incapable of creating change. This mindset can be deeply disempowering, trapping us in a cycle of blame and resentment that prevents us from taking responsibility for our own growth and healing. Instead of seeking solutions or new opportunities, we may become stuck, dwelling on what went wrong rather than what we can do to move forward. Moreover, bitterness takes a toll on our physical and mental health. The stress associated with carrying long-term resentment can manifest in physical symptoms such as headaches, fatigue, or weakened immunity. Emotionally, bitterness can contribute to feelings of anxiety, depression, and chronic dissatisfaction. The energy required to sustain bitterness, constantly revisiting past wrongs, guarding against perceived threats, and nursing feelings of anger can be exhausting, leaving us drained and disconnected from the joys of life. The antidote to bitterness lies in the difficult but necessary work of processing and releasing pain. This begins with acknowledging the hurt and allowing ourselves to feel the emotions that accompany it. Often, bitterness takes root because we try to suppress or ignore our pain, believing that moving on requires pretending the hurt didn't happen. In reality, healing requires us to confront and understand our feelings, to give ourselves the space to grieve what was lost or what didn't turn out as we hoped. Forgiveness is another powerful tool in combating bitterness, though it is often misunderstood. Forgiveness does not mean condoning harmful behavior or forgetting the hurt that was caused. Rather, it is a decision to release the hold that resentment has on us, to let go of the anger and bitterness that weigh us down. Forgiveness is not about the person who wronged us. It is about freeing ourselves from the grip of past pain, so that we can move forward with greater peace and clarity. Cultivating gratitude can also help counteract the risk of bitterness. When we focus on the positive aspects of our lives, the people who support us, the opportunities we've been given, the lessons we've learned, we create a buffer against resentment. Gratitude shifts our perspective, reminding us that while life is not always fair, it is also full of moments of beauty, connection, and possibility. Finally, addressing bitterness requires a willingness to take responsibility for our own healing. While it is natural to feel hurt by the actions of others, we cannot control what they do or how they behave. What we can control is how we respond, how we process our emotions, and how we choose to move forward. This responsibility is both a challenge and an opportunity. It empowers us to reclaim our lives, to step out of the shadow of bitterness and into a space of growth and renewal. In the end, the risk of bitterness is that it robs us of joy, connection, and the ability to fully engage with life. It keeps us tethered to the past, preventing us from embracing the present or envisioning a hope future. But by confronting and releasing bitterness, we open ourselves to healing, allowing pain to transform into wisdom and resilience. Life may not always be fair, but it is always worth living with an open heart, free from the weight of resentment. Cultivating competence in social skills is an essential aspect of personal development and plays a pivotal role in building meaningful connections, navigating relationships, and thriving in both personal and professional settings. While social skills might come naturally to some, they are not innate for everyone, and the good news is that they can be learned and improved with conscious effort and practice. Social competence is not just about being outgoing or charismatic. It is about understanding the nuances of human interaction, communicating effectively, and fostering relationships that are authentic and mutually enriching. The foundation of strong social skills lies in self-awareness. Before we can interact effectively with others, we need to understand ourselves, our emotions, motivations, and tendencies in social settings. Self-awareness allows us to recognize how we come across to others and how our actions and words affect those around us. For instance, understanding whether we tend to dominate conversations, avoid eye contact, or struggle with listening gives us a starting point for growth. Being mindful of our emotional state is equally important, as it helps us regulate our reactions and maintain composure in challenging or high-pressure social situations.